You know, sometimes the most revolutionary act isn't a speech or a battle or a protest. Sometimes it's just a painting. It's an artist insisting on showing the world not as we wish it was, but exactly how it is. Today, we're going to talk about a guy who used his paintbrush like a weapon and completely changed the game of art forever.
All right, so this is our guy, Gustave Courbet. I mean, just look at him. He looks like a man who does not back down from a fight. And he came to Paris from his small hometown with a really big, and what turned out to be, a really dangerous idea.
And that's the big question, right? How does a painter, a guy working with oil and canvas, become a threat to the entire cultural establishment of a country like France? The answer to that, well, that's what makes this story so incredible. Look, to really get why a rebel is a rebel, you first have to understand the empire they're fighting against. So before we get to Courbet's big revolution, we need to take a look at what the art world was like before he came along and crashed the party.
So this is what was considered great art back then. Huge, dramatic scenes from history, like this one. It's a story from ancient Rome, full of muscular heroes and perfect-looking women, all painted so precisely it's almost like a photograph. This was the gold standard, set by the French Academy, the institution that basically controlled everything.
Or if history wasn't your thing, you'd paint mythology. And wow, was this painting a hit. It's The Birth of Venus. I mean, look at it. The flawless skin, the lazy, elegant pose, the little angels flying around. It is pure fantasy. And in a time of political chaos, this was the kind of escape the rich and powerful wanted to buy. It's beautiful, no doubt, but it has zero to do with real life in Paris.
So you see, there were rules, very strict rules. Your subjects had to be noble. Think history, myths, religion. Your style had to be completely perfect and polished. You couldn't even see the brushstrokes. And the whole point was to create a perfect imaginary world, not the messy one that existed right outside the studio door.
So into this perfect world of gods and heroes walks our rebel from the countryside, Gustave Courbet. And he comes along with an idea so simple, it was completely revolutionary.
He called his idea realism. The name really says it all. The goal wasn't to paint some perfect past. It was to paint the here and now, to show regular people in regular places, honestly, without adding any glamour or hiding any of the flaws, warts and all.
In this quote from him, it just sums up his entire philosophy. He said, "I cannot paint an angel because I have never seen one." It was that simple. If he couldn't see it, touch it, experience it in his own life, he wasn't going to put it on a canvas. Period.
Okay, so you can probably guess what happens next. What happens when this radical idea of just paint what you see slams head-on into an establishment that only wants perfect fantasies? Well, you get a scandal. A huge one.
And let's just look at this clash. On the right, you've got that perfect, weightless Venus, a total dream. On the left, that's Courbet's painting The Bathers. These are not goddesses, they are solid, real women. One of them is stepping out of a creek, and her body isn't perfect or idealized, it's just real. And let me tell you, the Paris art world completely lost its mind.
Now here's the thing. The scandal wasn't really about nudity. The establishment loved a good painting of a nude goddess. No, the scandal was that Courbet dared to paint a normal, modern woman on a massive canvas, with all the lumps and bumps of an actual human body. To the critics, this was more than just ugly, it was vulgar. It was an insult to their whole system. This fight got so famous that it ended up in the newspapers as a joke. This cartoon here shows the two styles, idealism and realism, literally having a duel. On the right, you see idealism as this graceful, classical statue. And on the left, you've got this tough, scrappy-looking painter who looks a lot like Courbet, ready for a brawl.
So let's just break it down. The Academy wanted gods. Courbet painted workers. The Academy demanded perfection. Courbet gave them reality. The Academy wanted a slick, polished surface. Courbet let you see the thick, gloppy paint. It was escapism versus truth, a total showdown.
But for Courbet, this was never just about art. His rebellion on canvas was tied directly to his politics. And as France spiraled into war and revolution, his art and his politics were about to collide in a really, really big way.
So here's the super quick version of the chaos. France goes to war and gets crushed. The government collapses. In the power vacuum, a radical, working-class uprising called the Paris Commune takes over the city. And Courbet, a lifelong socialist, is all in. They even put him in charge of the arts. And that's when he gets involved in something that will seal his fate.
He argued for tearing down the Vendôme column, this massive monument to Napoleon's military conquests. To him, it was a symbol of war and empire, and he hated it. And of course, the papers had a field day, drawing cartoons like this one of him gleefully pulling the whole thing down.
And this wasn't just a cartoon, it really happened. This is an actual photograph of the column lying in ruins. For Courbet and his allies, this was a huge symbolic act, tearing down the old world. But when the French army came back, retook Paris, and brutally crushed the Commune, they were looking for a scapegoat.
And guess who they blamed? Courbet. He was arrested and thrown in prison. He actually painted this self-portrait while he was locked up. The rebel who had challenged the art world had now challenged the state itself, and he was paying a heavy price.
Courbet eventually got out of prison, but he was financially ruined and forced to live in exile. So in the short term, it really looked like he had lost. But when we look at the long game, at the revolution he started in art, he absolutely won the war.
So what was his ultimate legacy? Well, he basically kicked the door open for every artist who came after him. He proved that a painting of some guys breaking rocks or a funeral in a small town could be just as powerful and just as important as a painting of a god or a king. I mean, just take a look at this landscape. There are no goddesses or nymphs hiding in the caves. It's just rock and sea and cloudy sky. It's powerful, it's raw, it's real. By painting the world exactly as he saw it, he paved the way for the next generation of rebels, the Impressionists, who took his ideas and just ran with them.
So when you boil it all down, his impact was massive. He took ordinary, everyday life and said, "This is worthy of great art." He challenged the idea that some stuffy academy should tell artists what to paint. He laid the groundwork for modern art as we know it. And he proved that a painting could be way more than just a pretty picture. It could be a powerful statement.
And that's why Courbet's story still matters so much. His whole fight was about showing the truth of his time. It kind of makes you wonder, right? When you look at the art being made today, in galleries, on your screen, on the side of a building, what truths are today's artists trying to show us?